Forever. Dog.
Just between us. Just between us.
Hello, I'm Allison Raskin. I'm a writer, mental health advocate, and my dog Phantom is my best friend.
Hi, I'm Gaby Dunn. I'm a writer, bisexual icon, wink, and I went to a stranger's funeral on a yacht.
What?
Yeah. You don't even know about this. Melissa knows.
Why does Melissa know? I don't know.
She wanted to go on the yacht.
But how did she even know about the yacht?
TikTok.
Oh, yeah, I don't watch my friends' content, I'll be honest. I'll be honest about that.
Okay, so let me set the scene. It's during the day on Friday, and myself and my partner were very close friends with our neighbor who passed away.
Mm-hmm.
These people knock on our front door, and we're like, hello? And they're like, hi, sorry. We wanted to know what happened to Dita. And we were like, oh. And so we opened the door and they're like, hi, sorry, we're it's a couple.
How old are they?
Probably in their 40s, 50s.
Okay.
And they're, and so they're on the other, so they go, we live in the house like down the road. They described the house. We know that house. And they were like, what? We went and knocked on Dita's door. She's not there. And, we haven't seen her in like 9 months. Usually we see her outside and stuff. So like, we were just wondering if you knew her and if you know what happened. And we were like, I'm so sorry to tell you, she passed away in May. And they were like, oh, that's so sad. Like, we've lived here for 20 years. She lived here, since the 70s. We used to see her all the time. She came to barbecues and stuff. And we were like, yeah, I'm so sorry she passed away. And so then we start talking. We get to talking with them. They leave. We're like, that was so nice. We exchange numbers. We're like, oh, it's so nice. The guy texts Mal and says, hey, tomorrow, actually, we're going out on a yacht with our friend. His mother just died. And they're having a memorial on the yacht, but it's not a memorial. It's like, he's just having people on this yacht. And it's going to be like food and drinks and music. And he said we could bring whoever we wanted, up to like 10 friends. And a couple of our friends are coming. And you guys seem really nice. Like, do you want to come on the yacht? And Mal and I are like, we do want to go on a yacht.
Wow, this feels so risky to go on a boat with a bunch of strangers.
Agreed. Yes, we are two transsexuals deciding if we will go on a boat with some strangers. I want to say, people in the comments of Mal's video saying that this is like dangerous or whatever, or like true crime-y. I understand that. I don't know if it hurts or helps that they are not white. It's not like a white boomer couple. So I felt a little bit safer about it. And because white boomers are terrifying. And so Mal checked. They are, in fact, who they say they are. They have social media presences. They do, in fact, own that house, etc.
Right.
So we're like, okay, let's go on this yacht. So we're like, what should we bring? We bring flowers. And it keeps being like, this is really just like a casual hang. We're like, okay. So we get there and it's like a family. He's wearing all white, the main guy, our friend. And so he is like holding a binder.
It's not your friend's yacht.
It's not his yacht.
But
no.
He's wearing all white.
He's wearing all white. We realize he's leading the service.
Oh,
so we're like, we go on the boat. We realize it's a family. We're slowly realizing that it's like a family.
What do you mean?
Like, it's not just a bunch of friends. Like, it's like this guy, his family.
Whose mother is it that died?
His mother.
But he said it was his friend's mother.
No. The friend, yes. The friend is like, hey, so good to see you. So nice to meet you. Like, so-and-so told me all about you guys. Like, thanks for coming. Oh, thanks for the flowers. And so he's like jazzed and like kind of being like, here's these pictures of her that we're giving out and like all this stuff. She's a great woman, everything. But like, he's the only one that's kind of hyped. Everyone else in the family is like,
I'm really confused. Are you saying that your neighbor is the one leading the ceremony?
The neighbor is the one that looks like he's leading the ceremony. The neighbor's friend is the one whose mother passed away.
And so are they related to make it one family?
No, it's a family, and then it's our two neighbors, and then me and Mal.
Okay, got it.
And so we get, and also our neighbor's other friend out of the 10 people that they invited, like 3 of us came. So we get on the boat, and we're like, oh, this is like one, other than us and the neighbor and their one friend. This is like a family. It's a big boat, but there's only probably like 25 people on the boat total. There's like a big placard of the woman. It becomes, as we're pulling off the shore, it becomes clear that this is a funeral.
Oh, no.
We're like, okay. So, but we're having like a good time with like our neighbor and like meeting this one friend of theirs and stuff. They're so nice. They're so wonderful. Like everything is fun. But like the family is kind of like eyeing us. And then we go, there's like food. The main guy whose mother passed away, he's like talking to us and being like, jazzed. And he's wearing like just like a shirt and sneakers. And then there's like food. So Mal and I go upstairs to get the food. So we're in line, we're eating the food. An older woman says to Mal, I'm sorry, who are you here with? And we're like, oh. And Mal's like, with, X, Y, and Z. And she's like, oh. And like clearly not pleased. And so we are slow. So like eventually a few family members are like, and how do you guys know? Like, trying to, and then one girl was like, oh, that's cute. You guys get to like come on a yacht. And we're like, uh-huh. They're all very Italian. So it's got like a vibe of like bullish Italian, which like as Jews we like and are like comfortable with. But then they like 45 minutes in, they stop the boat. Everyone goes to the front. Our neighbor leads a service. They put the woman's ashes to sea with the flowers that Mal and I brought.
Oh my God.
The guy whose mother it is like, thank you so much for the flowers. It was the perfect touch. They put not just her ashes to sea, her daughter who passed 3 years ago, unexpectedly, they put her ashes to sea as well. The family members are crying, are sharing memories. They have a group photo. They make me and Mal be in it.
What?
Yes. Slowly, Mal says, you know what? Mal was like, I have a crazy uncle. Like, I could see a situation where someone dies and my uncle invites a bunch of strangers to the funeral thinking that it's totally fine. And the rest of the family is like, can you fucking believe what our crazy uncle did? We're the randos that he invited to the funeral.
Yes.
This is going to be a thing that the rest of the family for years are going to be like, remember when Uncle so-and-so invited all those random people
Not
to
even
grandma's
uncle,
funeral?
because it's just the friend.
No, the
uncle allowed his friend to invite people he'd met the day before
to a funeral. Yes. So we were very respectful. We asked questions. We were like, it's so nice to tell us about her life. Like, it's so nice to learn about her. Like, we were being like incredibly respectful. Like, obviously we don't drink. So we were like sober. Like, we were like being very unobtrusive. Like, but it was very clear that it was like the family was sort of like, why are these people here? Us and the other woman who the two people had invite the neighbors. And the family members don't really know the neighbors either. So it's like, I would say 5 of us who are not needed at this funeral that are on this boat for 4 hours.
4 hours?
Yeah. Having a fine time, drinking seltzer, looking at the ocean, seeing dolphins and stuff. But like, definitely also there's like a family dynamic that we are not a part of. And so like one of the girls is saying like, crying and talking about her grandmother. And she's like, one of my favorite memories was like Uncle Roger's wedding. Sorry to bring up your wedding, Uncle Roger, but it was one really great time for me. Again, sorry to bring it up. And I need to know what happened at Uncle Roger's wedding.
Well, I don't think anything happened at the wedding.
They're divorced.
I bet something happened at the marriage.
Yeah. And then we got off. And then the main guy the guy whose mother passed away was like, we were so respectful. We were like, this was so lovely. Thank you for having us. It was such an honor to learn about her life and what she meant to all of you and all these things. And he just goes, well, we got another person in the family. It's got 30 days, so we might all be back here again.
Oh my God. People
so that was my Saturday. That was last Saturday.
Anyway, this is Just Between Us, a variety show filled with heartfelt advice,
ridiculous games,
and brutal honesty.
We were kind of doing a thing where we're like saying yes to stuff.
I was going to say, like, you saying yes set this in motion. Like, I would never do this.
But
I would
we
never
were like,
go
okay,
in the
so
first
these
place.
random neighbors invited us on a boat the next day. And then I also had like just seen a forensic files where three people had died this way. And I was like, I think it'll be fine. This is like when we went to that Halloween party.
That's a little different because that was like your town and it was a bigger event. This is like a funeral that you crashed.
We didn't know it was a funeral.
It was a memorial.
Which they pitched to us so hard as being like, it's not a funeral. It's not going to be a downer. We're celebrating her life. It's going to be music and other friends. Like, that's how it was pitched.
Oh boy. Wild stuff.
Anyway, we need hobbies, me and Mal.
We have got a great episode for everyone today.
We're going to be talking to Claire Fallon and Emma Gray all about TV, dating, reality shows, and The Bachelor and inclusivity. It's like a really fun convo.
And later we'll be talking all about quiet quitting and what does it mean and is it real?
No.
Not really. But first, we have got to answer a listener's question. And you know what that means. Hit it! International question! International question! International question! Cat! Canada.
Ooh.
Love it.
Bonjour, Montreal. I don't know, I'm guessing.
Hi, Gabby and Allison. Huge fan of the pod. My question is, do I actually have to come out? So,
No.
all right. Next segment on
No,
Just
no,
Between.
no. Do it.
So I'm a sex pleasurable asexual. I have sex and I enjoy it. One of the main reasons I don't often tell people about my sexuality is because it's kind of incongruent with my sexual activity. And in order for people to understand it, I have to talk about my sex life. It feels like I need to give more information than other people do, just so people won't write me off as non-sexual. If you're gay, you say you're gay and people just move on. You say you're ace and people assume you're celibate. It's exhausting and kind of unnecessarily vulnerable to have to explain your sex life to people every time you reveal your orientation, even to people in the queer community, heck, even to other types of aces. People find it deeply confusing, and half the time I have to use analogies and get into the difference between romantic attraction, sexual attraction, and libido. Recently, someone asked, and I said, I'm an opportunist. I'm never looking for anything, but I accept a lot of good offers. The sex version of not hungry, but I could eat. Basically, if I say asexual, I feel like I'm misrepresenting myself, and if I get into it, I feel like I'm oversharing. I just feel like most people don't deserve to know this information about me, like they haven't earned it. But in our culture and in the queer community, which I haven't always felt welcome in, there's this huge emphasis on the importance of coming out and living your truth. I feel like I do that every day. I have sex when I feel like it, and I knit scarves when I don't.
Nice.
Am I really missing out on something? When I bother to explain it to people, they're usually someone I already trust and would already be having deep conversations with. But the rest of the world can think what they think. I was worried about whether or not this was just internalized acephobia. But when I found out that some of my close friends told other people, I didn't actually care. So I don't think I'm hiding it. I just don't feel like it's most people's business. But the question is whether you think coming out and being out is essential. Do you think that I'm hurting the ace community by not being more open about it? Or am I a part of the problem by not being a loud and proud ace? Or can I just keep living the way that feels most natural and comfortable to me? And is this question way too long? I'd appreciate your insight.
No, I think you're incredibly self-aware and incredibly you've thought this through and you're incredibly insightful about it. I think the only reason to come out is to find community. So if you are looking for other ace people that you want to hang out with and spend time with, and you would feel comfortable and it would feel better to you to have more friends who understand you, or have more friends where you're not explaining your sexuality to them, but rather you're already in a group that understands this type of thing, then that is the benefit. The only true benefit that I would push on you is the fact that coming out allows you to find community. It allows other people to find you. It allows you to feel understood and included and part of something, whether there's we're having an ace drinks event, or we're having, some sort of asexual panel discussion. And then, people know to invite you or to go to these things. That's it, honestly. The rest of it, you don't have to do anything. You seem completely in tune with what you want and what you are. You didn't mind when your friends told other people. I think you know, and you've said it yourself, and you know that like you don't owe anyone anything. You don't have to explain why you're having sex just because you identify as asexual. People have the wrong idea about these things all the time. And like the other only thing I could think of is that you mentioned like, you know, not wanting to ruin sort of romantic connections by someone thinking, oh, well, if that person's asexual, if Kat's asexual, they're obviously not going to be interested in me. And I am guilty of that, definitely. Like I've had people say, you know, oh, I'm demisexual or oh, I'm asexual. And so I, in the past, have assumed, oh, they're not interested in me. And then later they've been like, no, I was interested in you. I just, you know, need to feel very comfortable in order to have sex, or I need to like get to know someone, or I need to like be in the right mindset or whatever. So like I had the wrong ideas about asexuality and about demisexuality. And so I can see how you would worry that somebody would have those wrong ideas and you would be missing out on romantic connections because somebody is misunderstanding you. But again, that means, you know what? Community might be the solution to that, honestly. But other than that, I think you're fine.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, like you don't need to ever overshare something if you don't want to share it.
100%. You don't have to tell people about your sex life.
Right. And so like I think like the way that you're doing it now, where you don't have like a blanket way that you approach it, but it's more case by case. What situation do you feel comfortable with? Like, you know, putting these hard and fast rules of like, I need to come out to everyone or I shouldn't come out to anyone. Like, you don't need that. I think you have found like a really lovely balance where when you feel comfortable with somebody, you can share more. And when you don't need to share anything. And I also think that like this fear of like somebody misunderstanding you, like I totally get that. And I totally get the idea of like a big fear of misrepresentation. But I also think that like if you identify as asexual, like you're allowed to just leave it at that.
I agree. And I think too, there's a lot of, you know, you mentioned sort of discomfort in the queer community. And I think there is a lot of emphasis in the queer community on sex and on, you know, like there's like, oh, are you a top? Are you a bottom? Like that's like a big part of people's identities, and they use them as like, and I love that. Speaking as a top, I love it. But like that is a thing that we put a lot of pressure on to define, or we put a lot of pressure on people to like define the specifics of what they're doing sexually. And I don't know that that's great for us. And I think that probably causes problems with asexuals in the community, or with people who are a little bit shyer in the community. I remember like if someone is like in queerness, if somebody's like, well, I don't want to say if I'm a top or a bottom, whatever, like people are like, boo, boo. And it's
Really?
like, people are like very like, they are not fun. But it's like, I think like we could all take a step back and like be a little less entitled to other people's details.
Yeah. I mean, really thinking of it as that, like nobody is entitled to your details. And also like you don't have to, it's probably exhausting to feel like you always have to explain yourself.
Totally.
Like what's really cool is that you have figured out how you tick and what you like. And that's enough. That's great. Like it's not your responsibility to be able to articulately relay that to other people.
Totally. It's on them. Knit me a scarf, girl.
So thank you for submitting this question, because I think it is such an interesting thing and points out some like really kind of like maybe unfair expectations we do put on people in the queer community to be so open about their sex lives.
Well, think about like how with bisexuals, people are like, well, how many have you been with of every kind? Tell me. Or like cis gay men are you a top or are you bottom? Or with lesbians, like, oh, like which one of you does this and which one of you does that? It's like, relax, everyone. Just, I guess my general note would be chill the fuck out.
Nobody's ever like, I'm straight. And it's like, oh, how many guys have you fucked?
Yeah, or like, I'm straight. Oh, which one of you like is on top? Like nobody asks that.
Yeah, it's such a good point.
So whatever, you know, like I think you're good. It's always funny when someone writes in and they like have like such a better grasp on themselves than we ever possibly could. So I'm like, why are you asking? Like, do you look at, do you think we have it together? You wrote a very beautiful and articulate email. What the hell could we help you with?
Sometimes it's just nice to feel like, oh,
heard.
Yeah, heard. Yeah. And like, and also that like, yeah, like that makes sense. All the things you're saying make sense.
Yeah.
I know for me, it can be really helpful. I don't always necessarily need someone to get me where I need to go, but just once I've gotten there for them to be like, yeah, I get it, is helpful.
Yeah, and like, where in Canada? Do you want to hang out?
If you would like to submit your international question, you can send it to justbetweenuspod@gmail.com. That's justbetweenuspod@gmail.com.
Up next, we've got an exciting and juicy interview with our highly esteemed guests, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. Stay tuned.
Creating visual content is an essential part of business, but the creative process isn't always easy.
I have to make a lot of social posts for us, and it is so painful designing all of that stuff. I don't really have a huge level of design skills, and I really needed to make stuff that looked good enough to represent this show, but I needed like my hand held while doing it.
With Canva, you can design anything like a pro on any device, even if you have no prior design experience, like Gaby.
One thing that I really loved about Canva Pro is that when I make the thumbnails for these episodes, I'm able to use this amazing library of clip art. And Canva Pro makes it easy to create stunning visual content in any format, from social media posts to videos, presentations, and websites. Without any design experience, like me, you can whip up stunning content in minutes with thousands of professionally designed templates, like the one I use for our thumbnails.
Canva Pro also streamlines how you manage social media. You can plan, create, and share social media content directly to all your channels from one place and even schedule posts ahead of time.
It's never been this easy to create a compelling video until Canva Pro. The drag and drop video editor is so simple to use and has tons of filters, animations, and transitions that will bring your content to life. I edited an entire video on Canva Pro and it was incredible.
Design like a pro with Canva Pro.
Right now, you can get a free 45-day extended trial when you go to canva.me/justbetweenus.
That's canva.me/justbetweenus for a free 45-day extended trial.
Canva.me/justbetweenus.
Just between us.
Welcome back to Just Between Us. It's time for the juiciest, most scandalous, most controversial segment known to all of podcasting. Tough questions.
This week on the show, we have Emma Gray and Claire Fallon, the hosts of a very popular podcast, Love to See It, which is all about the Bachelor franchise and other dating reality shows, but with a feminist and journalistic eye on the shows. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for that wonderful intro. We're so excited to be here.
Oh my, I could dive into this topic for hours, as I have with both of you on your show.
It's true.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that like my first question has got to be like, why do you think people love reality dating shows so much?
Oh, what's
That's a
not
big
to
question.
love?
Yeah.
I know. I love how Emma's like, that's a big question. I'm like, why not? Like, obviously people love them. Both things are true. I think that these shows offer something that everyone craves, which is obviously gossip. Like, we all want to be bonded together through discussing all the embarrassing and weird shit that other people do, especially with regards to their love lives. I think that people love romance. We love to believe in love. And so it also offers us love stories. So many of us are obsessed with love stories. It's drama, it's chaos. It just feeds like every consumeristic like narrative impulse that I personally have. And I know I'm not alone.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with everything that Claire said. I think that there is something specific about dating and romance where it is a topic that can kind of overwhelm our individual brains. And it's something that feels both very collective and also very, very individual, right? Like we're all kind of on our own little dating and romantic journeys. And that can feel really isolating a lot of the time. And so I think there is like a soft piece of ourselves that these reality romance shows kind of hit at. And also like a voyeurism of, and also a simplicity of like, oh, wouldn't it be so nice and convenient if there was just like this really clear set of structured steps and this pool of just 20 random people. And if you just like did the thing at the end of a few weeks, you're going to have love.
I mean, is there any other genre that completely blends together so perfectly our desire for like aspirational wish fulfillment and the desire to like gaze upon a train wreck and be like, at least I'm not like that. Like it marries those things together beautifully.
I will be watching The Bachelor and get so nervous for when I have to do it. Only to be like, I'm not going to be on this show. Like, I will be watching and be like, oh, when I'm at the rose ceremony. I'm like, I'm never going to be at the rose ceremony.
Yeah, it creates a level, even like, I remember watching the queer season of Are You the One? It creates a level of stress where I've put myself in that situation. And I was like, oh my God, this person is me. This person is my ex. This person is like, it just triggered all of the things where you're like projecting yourself into the entire situation.
Oh, yeah.
I was legitimately having like stressful moments watching it because I had just broken up with someone who is similar to one of the characters. Person, a real person.
But they are
character.
also
They're kind of both
characters.
right?
They're both real people and they are constructed characters on the show, which is one of the most horrifying things about reality TV.
Yeah, I mean, that gets to sort of like the morality of it all, right? Because like, you know, I think like we try to be good people in this world. We try not to exploit people, but then we're also like consuming this type of show that like kind of hinges on exploitation. And so how do you like navigate that in your head? Because I have a hard time doing it.
Just like a constant feeling of like death in the pit of my stomach. Like that, like there isn't really a good solution. And it's something that I think we often sort of talk ourselves in circles about. And like where we sort of land is these cultural products exist and they are popular for a reason. And like, if the two of us just decide not to watch, they're not going to go away. And they are saying something about and also simultaneously kind of constructing the culture. And so I think what we try to do is be critical consumers of this kind of media and like encourage other people who might want to or find themselves enjoying these shows, but want to do so in a way that maybe feels a little bit more constructive or ethical, like to try to kind of get in the mud with us and ask the important questions and see what kind of lessons we can glean.
Yeah, I think it does create like a lot. I mean, I watch it as like an observer of straight culture. Where I'm just like, what is this?
The straights aren't okay. Like it's very clear from The Bachelor, one episode, and you're like, we're not well.
And I remember you pitched me the show at one point being like, it's about polyamory. And I was like, in a way, it is. Because I'm so like, there's all of these queer ideas in it where it's like, they're all friends while they're dating the same person. They're all like, know that the other person is going on other dates, allowed to be in love with multiple people, and almost like, oh my God, you could be in love with two people at the end. Like, obviously they make you choose, but there's these like queer ideas to this thing that is so heterosexual and so straight. And, I think there's been more people coming out, not Colton, he doesn't count, but the other ones. Like, I think it does have such an impact if we can get these types of things in front of the eyeballs of like the most mainstream audience, whether it's like their neurodivergent stuff that happened with the Elizabeth and ADHD, or Demi being bisexual. Like, we are getting these little, it seems slow to me, progress, but it is like, we are getting small things through. Even like that they were promoting Bros on the Men Tell All, which is like the first studio gay rom-com. My partner was like, why are they doing this? And I was like, no, this is good. This is good.
They're willing to like sell a segment to Bros, but like that, like the idea that they would ever include like a gay romance as the main thread on their show is much more threatening to their show structure. And like that, I think will take longer to accomplish. Like we talk about like the polyamory element of the show or like all of these sort of queer elements, but those are like in the show almost as the threats that you have to like battle through to get the prize of heterosexual monogamous love at the end. And so like, I think for the mainstream audience consuming it, you're looking at it and you're like, oh, so like this is what happens when you fall in love with multiple people. Everyone's miserable and it's terrible. You just have to hang on and hope that you're the one who's picked at the end. And like yours is the monogamous love that is worth holding on to. And that polyamory stuff was just like some like nightmare test for you to get through. And I think that's how like a lot of the time how these sort of marginalized experiences are used in reality TV. Like they're included, but in a way that's sort of like, but we like clamp down on this in some way, or we're actually including it in order to be like, that's something that we have to like protect ourselves from. Like it's a dangerous thing. And I think The Bachelor is like the ultimate example of that. They're like, we're doing this crazy, like edgy thing, but all in service of like ultimately banishing it in favor of marriage between two white people, to a white man and a white woman who will have children.
Christian children.
Christian children. Beautiful. And if they're not Christian, we're simply not going to talk about it.
I will say the one thing that has been exciting is seeing some conversations that have happened on the show and knowing that those conversations might be the first time that a lot of the audience has seen conversations about that stuff, you know, from like men talking about going to therapy openly to, you know, like Michelle discussing the impact of Black Lives Matter and that in the summer of 2020. And, you know, like I feel like there have been moments where I'm like, oh, like this is a way to potentially change some people's perspectives or open some people's eyes in the disguise of a very heteronormative conservative show.
Yeah. It's like this delicate dance that you're always trying to do where it does feel inherently positive to see and just like a testament to the fact that when you have a greater diversity of lived experiences and the people that you are casting and the people that are making your show, you're going to have all of these new and interesting threads. Like you're just going to have more creative and interesting storylines when you cast different kinds of people. Also, it's hard because sometimes we do see these people that are so vulnerable and I think so like giving and generous of themselves in a really vulnerable and sort of inherently exploitative setting. And then you face the question of like, are these people being supported? Is there an infrastructure there to actually support them from and protect them from the reactions of certain segments of the audiences of this show? So it's like, you're like, that's great. But also like, I hate seeing people put in these positions that could ultimately be harmful. And it's like, how do you kind of change the structure around them so that doesn't like create more harm?
Yeah. I was curious. A thing that keeps coming up now is like different body types on the show. Like if there's, you know, a world for like a fat person on the show or like a fat lead even, or I sometimes like if one of the guys takes off his shirt to get in the hot tub and he doesn't have abs, I'm like, love it. Yes. Like, yeah, my man, you know? So it's like, but
beautiful.
But then they don't really have women like that, you know? So do you think that is something that could happen?
It could. Am I like optimistic that the show
I'm not.
is I'm not optimistic. I think it's important and like amazing that, for example, the Roses for Everybody campaign is really pushing for more body diversity on the show and for like centering the idea of casting fat contestants and showing them as beautiful and desirable. And also, like, I think that campaign recognizes there's a huge amount of work that The Bachelor as a franchise would have to do aside from casting to make that work. You know, you have to cast people who are genuinely interested in dating people with diverse bodies. Like, you can't just throw a couple plus size women on a TV show just to get treated like garbage by The Bachelor or sent home night one. And that's just on a very basic level. There's also, like Emma mentioned, about racial diversity, all these ways that contestants need to be supported behind the scenes, styled correctly. So it would be a big shift. And I certainly don't think that the show is interested in making it, let alone in doing all the work that needs to be done to make it go well. But I think it would really improve the show. I mean, I think that the show is suffering from it's monotonous.
Hitting a wall.
Yeah.
I mean, even like casting people with disabilities in certain ways. Like the one guy from, I forget whose season, Hannah Brown. He just had his leg amputated. Like that made me think it would be so interesting to have someone on the show who comes into the show like with a different sort of body type or with a different sort of disability or something like, and I know that that would be then seen as a gimmick. But like, what if you just did that a little bit more? Like, it's just it's getting to be boring without different types of people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think, the only way you're going to get over that hump is to just start doing it. And in like critical numbers, Sarah Heron, who does have a disability, physical disability, she is, I think, the only representation that I can remember really seeing on The Bachelor. And in a lot of ways, I think she had a decent experience. But I also know on Bachelor in Paradise, then they featured some like really, really cruel and disgusting comments that one of the contestants, Chad, makes specifically about her limb difference. And so it's like, when you just throw one person in there, there is just so much room for tokenization and exploitation. And it's hard, like in terms of body diversity, I think in order for them to really make those changes, they would need to put a lot of work and a lot of money behind that and resources. And I also think that there would be a period of growing pains where some people who were cast on the show would probably have to go through it. And that is also hard.
It would be an audience education process.
We just had Ethan was like the first Asian contestant to get like a kiss with a lead on air or something. That like
the first Asian.
He made it the furthest, I believe, in the show.
That is wild.
Yeah, he made it to what, final 6?
Yeah,
or something?
So we're
Final
not even
5.
there on that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot of work.
I mean, the show has historically been very poor at racial diversity, and a lot of that conversation has understandably focused on Black contestants being cast, but it's also been, in terms of Asian American men, there's almost no representation at all, and Latinx contestants as well. Like, there's just a complete lack of attention to that across the board historically.
Yeah.
Another thing that I feel like has made me less of a fan of the show is like how none of these relationships work out. That like, it's hard. It's getting hard to like buy into the romance when like everyone breaks up like so quickly afterwards, or like doesn't even make it to after the final rose. And like, why do you think that the concept of the show seems to fail so much?
I mean, I think that's kind of always been the case. Like if you look even from the beginning, it's not like the couples in the first 10 seasons stayed together. There's very few except for Trista and Ryan. But they are like the one, the two of them, and then like Sean and Catherine's like every time one works out, the show is like, remember these people?
It took like a decade for them to get one Bachelor to actually stay with his.
Bachelor in Paradise has, I think at this point, maybe some success stories. I think
they get more to start with though. So each season they have the possibility of like 10 engagements if they're really
they're
lucky.
Like, okay, 3, at least like 1 will make it a year. And like that's enough for people. But I think part of like what we're all feeling is that the show itself is less invested in telling good, cohesive, romantic stories. Like the focus of the show has become so much on figuring out more and more emotionally traumatic ways to kind of break the format without fundamentally breaking the format. And so instead of focusing on like real substantive changes they could make to the stakes of the show or the casting of the show or what the show is actually trying to do, instead they're like, no, this is still definitely a marriage show. This is about engagement. This is about true lasting love. But also like, we're going to give you very little to buy into, except for the fact that at least 60% of the cast will be like extremely emotionally traumatized by the end.
Yeah. You used to feel like they were manipulating you to being invested in that final couple,
Right.
even when maybe you shouldn't be. And now it's almost like they're doing the opposite. They're like, do you really believe in these guys? Like,
And
with all
they're
the shit that's gone
manipulating
down?
them into being
Mm-hmm.
together in front of our eyes
Yeah.
more than showing like, isn't this a beautiful love
Right.
story?
Yeah. There's another thing going on, which is that the contestants didn't used to come off the show, or the leads, and be influencers. And now we're sort of expecting to follow them.
Mhm.
Like, all of those couples broke up, and except for Trista and Ryan in the first like decade of the franchise. And it would be in People or like Us Magazine. It'd be like, oh, like Allie and Roberto broke up. Like, that's a bummer.
But everyone would have moved on. Like,
And now we're expecting to follow like Rachel and Brian, one of our actual success stories. We're expecting to like follow their story on social media every day
Forever.
for years to come. And so the strife that turns up in these relationships, the breakups, the churn, feels like it looms much larger in Bachelor Nation than it once would have. We would all be like totally maybe focused on the current season. Instead, we're devoting a lot of our time to like keeping tabs on all of those former leads and their partners.
That's a great point. And it kind of brings up like another question I had, which was like, how much are we owed to still know about them? Like, like we've talked about this on the show before, but like if we saw your whole love story unfold, like I want all the details of your breakup too.
I think it's so normal that people who have invested time and energy into a televised couple like do feel some level of entitlement, curiosity to understand how things kind of wrap up. But it's hard. It's like, how do you create that balance where people are still allowed to have some amount of healthy boundaries and, be able to communicate to their fan bases? Like, they're not actually entitled to every single piece of their romantic lives until the end of time, just because they went on one season of a television show. I think that if you go and you get engaged or you date someone on TV, you should expect that you at least need to like say something publicly if and when you end that relationship. But do you have to answer every single commenter every single day you don't post a photo with that person who says, are you broken up? Are you broken up? Are you still together? Why haven't we seen them? Like, no, we aren't actually entitled to that kind of like daily surveillance. But I think social media makes us feel like we are.
Well, and part of that is on the contestants too. I mean, to some extent, like if you are clearly building your influencer platform on the relationship that you're
that's
in,
true.
if you're making it a big part of your content, then it is sort of hard to turn around and argue like, how dare you,
Want to know
what's going on with us? They've just disappeared from my feed and I won't be addressing it. Like, no, like you're making your living off of selling that information to everyone. And you have to understand that that is creating a sense of entitlement to people. Like, you are selling that sense of entitlement to your
They're
romantic
not
details to
ready.
people.
They're not ready. It's a heavy mix of like, you get off the show, you didn't have this audience before, now you do. So you want to post constantly with the person because that's going to get the most likes and views rather than just you by yourself. You want the influencer money. You want to try to get brand deals if you're not getting brand deals. Sometimes probably the brand deals are like, we would love to do a commercial with you, Grocery Store Joe, but Serena has to be in it, or like whatever.
Right.
Most likely it's we want Serena and you could be there as well. But like, I think like it's that kind of thing. And so they're not prepared. Either they go on the show hoping to become an influencer afterwards, or they come off the show and they had genuine intentions and they don't realize that it's going to be a fucking circus for them and this person for the forever. And like, do you buy into the circus? Do you want the money? Do you play? Do you make these like very clean, beautiful videos that Hannah G and Dylan make? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
I'm just dying to know what Hannah G and Dylan's actual life is like when they're not like doing date night and she's putting on a tiny dress. I'm sure they are, but like all I know about them is that she's always putting on little dresses and doing her like date night makeup routine. And then he like kisses her.
I think he's a wife guy.
He's definitely a wife
He's
guy.
just happy to be there.
So real.
Yeah. He's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
And him. And so I'm like, they're not ready. There's no media kit. I imagine the show does not prepare them. You don't have to. I think also like we started out on the internet in a certain way, and you don't have to answer. Like if you go to Reddit and you see people are like discussing whether you're wearing your ring or not, you don't have to address that. These are just Reddit people. But it feels in the moment so immediate that you're like, I must respond. A lot of times the best response is to just do nothing, but you're not media trained. You don't know. You were a realtor 5 weeks ago. So like you just don't have any idea.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. There is such an odd thing where like people can achieve this level of instantaneous overnight micro fame now. And I think we underestimate like the impact on people's
mental health,
mental
stress,
stability. Yeah. I think that we even feel it, having a very, very small platform in a niche podcast space. And I still like if someone is angry at me on Instagram or like on Reddit, like I get like severe anxiety. And that's such a fraction of what someone who comes off a reality show and is engaged.
And you're bringing your family into it. And then they nitpick your family. And like, I get it. No, someone goes on the show, their uncle wore a MAGA hat one time in a picture. I get it. We're all upset. But like, you're not like thinking like, oh God, I hope my uncle didn't wear a MAGA hat one time and now everyone on Reddit hates me. Like it's wild what's going on.
Yeah, there is an incredible amount of scrutiny on Bachelor contestants that like doesn't really exist for any other reality show, which if I were coming up in the world and I was like looking to get cast on a reality show
I
to launch my platform, I
Bachelor.
would not go for The Bachelor if I could avoid it for that reason, among others. Hopefully I wouldn't have any photos like that in my past. I'm not aware of any, but like Reddit commenters figure out
everything
things that, I wouldn't know about myself probably. But I think an interesting thing you see with Bachelor couples is that so often in the years after they come off the show, the ones who break up and the ones who stay together will describe the same sort of dynamic, which is like we face this incredible like onslaught of attention and pressure to be a certain way. And the couples that stay together will often talk about how they were each other's rock. And the couples that break up will often talk about how they handled it differently. And they didn't really know how to be that for each other because they were being like, why do you want us to do this in response to that attention? Why can't we do that instead? And so like just coming off this show creates this gigantic, unique hurdle for couples to navigate that if they had met in another setting, maybe they wouldn't have fallen in love because the setting is so unnatural, but also maybe they just wouldn't have had that unnatural, weird obstacle to overcome
It really
so early.
sets people up for failure in a lot of ways romantically. Like the amount of pressure on a relationship without a solid foundation, without the ability to really have like even your community kind of wrapped around you, because in those first few months, they have to be dating in secret while all this commentary is happening before they're even announced. Like it is, I can't imagine a worse way to date, honestly.
We often talk about too, like the final two that get together, and then my partner is like watching the fantasy suites and like watching the lead with the second runner up or whatever. And my partner's like, that's gonna be a fight.
Yeah, the whole process of having to watch it back has to be tough.
Oh, yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah.
That was a big part of the Ben Higgins and Lauren Bushnell breakup narrative, was that she never got over him telling JoJo that he loved her as well, which Lauren did not find out until she saw it air on the show.
Right. You gotta say that once you're together.
You gotta prep your partner for that.
That's a rough conversation.
We're going to take a quick break, but stick around.
It can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when faced with a challenge in life. But one of the best things about going to therapy is that you have a set time to talk about what's going on. So you don't have to feel like you need to be coming up with a solution all the time. You can sort of say, oh, that's a problem I'll discuss in therapy.
Yeah, you don't need to ruminate on it all the time and just start like making your brain, like smoke come out of your ears while you're just thinking about it over and over again with no outside eye to give you like, a perspective that maybe you haven't thought about before.
Yeah, someone who's been in and out of therapy since I was 4 years old, I definitely would get to a place where I'd be like, oh, that's a problem to work out in therapy, and then just like continue my day instead of feeling like I needed to address it right away.
Yeah, I mean, you can get so much from trying therapy. You can unload your stress. You can have help with anxiety and depression. You can get like some emotional healing. I've been having so many revelations in therapy lately. It's actually been incredible.
If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option.
It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online.
You can get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists at any time. Because as we've said before on this show, sometimes you're not going to have the right fit, and it's really important to have a good relationship with your therapist in order for the therapy to, be meaningful and impactful.
When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit BetterHelp.com/JustBetweenUs today to get 10% off your first month.
That's BetterHelp.com/JustBetweenUs.
Just between us.
And we're back.
Something I wonder about is like, there's such a pressure to quote unquote be there for the right reasons. And if anyone alludes to the idea that being on a huge show could get them Instagram followers, then it's like they're, the devil, and how dare they dare they say something like that? That's never crossed my mind. Like, I don't know. Like, I just think that's so wild. Like, how could you at this day and age go on to The Bachelor and not be thinking about that? And like, why do you think there's still like, it is so taboo to admit it at all?
Because the show itself is so invested and has sort of like conscripted its most like loyal soldiers within the franchise to like perpetrate this myth that this show somehow is like exists outside of all of these other dynamics that, we are all engaging with in our culture. Like it's the only reality dating show I can think of that is so adverse to engaging with social media, and for so long tried to like prevent its cast members from even being on social media. Like they used to make them not even be on Twitter while the season was airing.
And like you can see why, because of how messy things are now.
Yeah.
Like if only none of their contestants didn't have old tweets and Instagram likes that anyone could see, right? Like what a dream for the show. But they can't exist outside of that. So they relented. Mm-hmm. They knew it was unrealistic and they were like, maybe we can like harness the energy of social media instead, which has been successful to some extent, but it does bring with it a lot of downsides for the show.
But I think it also like the show is able to reinforce its own rules by allowing these little peeks in and then like punishing people swiftly who violate the rules of the world. It's like, oh, you dare speak of Instagram on camera? Like you're being kicked out of paradise. Like that is it. You're done.
My favorite was definitely Thomas being badgered into admitting that he had considered that sometimes The Bachelor is cast from past contestants of which he would be one. And he was like, yes, I suppose that had crossed my mind.
I did think about it.
Right.
I thought about it one time that was a thing. And they're like,
he's like, I can't say for sure that I've never considered that possibility.
And they were like,
it
demon!
seems like a realistic.
That was so wild to me. That whole time that they were villainizing Thomas, I was like, what? On what grounds? Like I couldn't.
I know. I was like, did we miss that? Like, what
Weird.
did he do? And it turns out nothing. He did nothing. And yet that storyline continued.
He
for
did
like a
it,
year.
right? Like, why did everybody hate him so much?
Because he's so handsome. They don't like it.
And tall.
He's tall.
Have you heard how tall he is?
Also, there's just
Men
like
don't like
it's funny
that.
to watch with people who have never watched before. So like my friend's new partner is watching with us. And they're like, why doesn't she just say she loves him? And I'm like, oh, no, you can't. You have to say they can be falling in love. Like to explain these things, I sound nuts. Like, I'm like, no. And then it's like, well, have they been sleeping together the whole time? No. They can only sleep together when it's the final 3 and they get this room. Oh, well, have they talked about like religion or politics? No, they do that in the fantasy. Like, it's like very.
They do that in the tiny sex room. That's where they talk about the politics.
Yeah.
Will this be a sex room or a talking about politics room?
Right.
And like, if you make the wrong decision, you could end up getting engaged to someone who like voted for Donald Trump. So choose wisely.
Or like just these rules that are so like ridiculous. That's like, oh, are they still friends? No, they're friends until like the final 3 and then they hate each other.
They have to keep them apart so they don't rip each other's throats out. It's all very healthy.
I think like one of the major weaknesses of the show as a viewer is not ever letting us see those kinds of conversations about real issues
or
like,
real world anything.
Yes.
Right? Like I want to see them talk about like what their politics are, where
We've been
they
saying this for
want to
years.
live, like
Mhm.
what like the nitty gritty like family dynamics, like actual stuff. And I think that would also help with the buy-in because then you'd feel like you actually know these people. Like
Mhm.
I don't feel like I know any of these people pretty much ever.
Yeah. For this season,
Certainly
I don't
not
know
this
any of them.
season.
They all look alike too. It's very other than my love Avon. But like other than the mullet, I guess I recognize the one guy that has a mullet. But like they all like I saw a post that was like one of the good ways could be to fix the show could be doing what you said and also to give them dates that are like, here are my real friends. Here is let's cook a meal together. Let's put together fucking IKEA furniture. Like what do
Ultimate
you
test.
what do you like to like actually do in your hometown? Not something that's, camera ready, but just kind of
Real life
actually
simulations.
having their families meet each other or something, like real life,
Ooh.
real stuff that would happen in
That
real
could be
life.
some good drama. I mean, I think that's why even like one of my favorite parts of this season was the Paris episode where Rachel and Gabby were just on like dates walking around the city. And then they were obviously very drunk at a bar, like giggling to each other. And that I was like, yeah, there's that element of wish fulfillment because they're in this beautiful European city. But also they're just like walking around with some cute guys and they're chatting and we're getting a sense of their actual personalities. And like, why don't we have more of that? Like that, I think, you want to see people, you need to get more from all of these characters in order for us to give a shit about them. And they're just instead doubling and tripling down on
Here's fireworks. Here's this. Here's that. Do this thing. Be distracted. Don't ever. When it gets to the nighttime date and they're like, so I've been meaning to talk to you. I'm like, what have you been doing all day?
That drives me crazy when the whole date is like so tense because there's a big thing they need to talk about it. But instead they're just like, we can't talk about that right now. So I guess we'll just sit next to each other and sip champagne and talk about other stuff, like other than the one thing I really want to talk about.
Confusing.
Like, what are you going to do all day?
I'm wondering what your thoughts are at how sexism plays out in the show. And if you think it's gotten any better, if it's gotten worse, like what,
Oh God, it's like morphed.
That's such a big question.
I mean, sexism is inherent to the show, right? Like this is a show that was built on the promise of heterosexual, white, right-wing Christian marriage that involves like mandatory having of children. Like that is the DNA of the show. So I think that's frankly part of why Claire and I started even talking about a show like The Bachelor, because as people who thought about sexism and wrote about sexism in our journalist careers, we saw this as kind of like the perfect avatar to talk about the way that sexism and misogyny and the patriarchy kind of play out in our romantic lives. And obviously the structure of heterosexual marriage is kind of all about women as property historically, and about sort of women subjugating themselves for like men to have as many resources as possible. And so I think it's interesting to watch The Bachelor grapple with the changing conversation around gender dynamics. And often the change is very slow and there's like a lot of fumbling around. But I do think even when they do it really poorly, we can see, because reality TV is made so rapidly, we do see these kind of shows. They're really reactive to the cultural conversation. So often changes are handled poorly, but I do think we see changes occur just even in the way that like they used to never talk about sex at all. We would have never gotten, you know, a Hannah Brown in the early seasons saying, I fucked in a windmill 4 times and Jesus still loves me. Like iconic. And I think, you know, in part, the reason she was allowed to do that is because she also delivers
Jesus
something
loves
for that
me.
like evangelical core. Yeah. But just even the acknowledgement that like a woman's sexual pleasure might be something worth pursuing. Like you wouldn't have seen that even maybe 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's definitely been an evolution. I think that like one thing I've been randomly fixating on this season is that once again, we're going to have an argument about whether the final choice of the lead is going to propose. And I looked back and like, there have been a lot of seasons of The Bachelor where the man has just declined to propose and they've ended not engaged. But like every season of The Bachelor has ended, of The Bachelorette has ended with an engagement almost. And usually because, like often because the woman was like, I demand a proposal. And there's something just about the fact that the show is built around the act of a proposal, which is so inherently like sexist and patriarchal as a construct, that like it is this thing that men, it's theirs to give or withhold. It's their choice to decide the timing and the manner of it. And the woman's place is to long for it and to feel that it is the ultimate marker of her worth and acceptance to be offered it. And so I'm someone who still to this day is like, I wish my proposal from my husband was more romantic. Like it's so deeply baked in. You're just like, would I be a better woman if like he had like covered the wall with love notes and like lit candles instead of just being like, hey, the ring came, like, do you want to marry me? You know, it's so deeply baked in. I I was just like, couldn't it be a little bit more special? So like, I understand why that desire is there in The Bachelorettes because it's so deeply baked in. You're like, I'm here. I'm supposed to be the most desirable woman. Why can't I have this thing that I've been so deeply conditioned to want and to have as my joyful moment, my moment of success? Why can't he just give it to me? I don't think that women should feel pressured to like not get engaged at the end if that's what they want in order to like prove that their motivations are correct. But the fact that like that's what it always comes down to is just so dated. And it's because the whole show is built around a proposal.
Right.
And the leads of The Bachelorette don't want to be like, well, I'm just going to do it because we've been so deeply conditioned to want to be given
Yeah, why
it by
doesn't
the
she
right man.
propose?
Okay, the interesting thing is that in the very first season of The Bachelorette, if you rewatch it, early on in the season, when Chris Harrison is like explaining the concept of The Bachelorette, they tease it as like Trista is going to propose to someone in the end. And then they just dropped it, never spoke of it again, had the man propose. And then
I bet that Trista wanted a proposal. Like, I'm sorry, like most straight women in this society have been deeply ingrained with the idea that that's a beautiful moment and we don't want to give the proposal instead. But what that dynamic that sets up is to be on the top of the world as The Bachelorette and to end your season by begging a man to make that commitment
right, to propose to you. Yeah, it's like this ceding of power at the 11th
end
hour
when you've had the power the whole time.
Right.
Totally.
Or at least ostensibly had the power. It's like, well, this is one thing I'm not able to give myself or to ask for or to just like have. Right. And I still need that straight male affirmation that I'm like worthy as a person. And yeah, as Claire said, like, I don't blame any of the women on the show for feeling that way because it is so deep in the way that straight women are kind of raised and taught to like think about ourselves and our worth. And it's just like, it's it's very complicated. But I do think that the show suffers and is fundamentally has a conservatism baked into it because it is so deeply attached to this idea that proposal is like the ultimate show of love, the ultimate prize.
And I think having 2 bachelorettes this season is another way for the women to not feel in control and for them to feel like, oh yeah, it's a bachelorette, but let's still make these women completely question their worth, you know, pit them against each other, have them not feel desirable, play up on all their insecurities, even though the bachelorette, you're supposed to just like be the lead that's in control.
Yeah.
But I could never, ever see them doing 2 bachelors.
They
don't
should.
think
Why can't they do 2
I
bachelors?
wish they would. That would be really,
I wish they
honestly.
would.
And I want
would
them to do
love
the
that.
exact same Thelma and Louise photo shoot that they made the girls do. I want them to do a joint photo shoot. I want them dressed like Brokeback Mountain, or I'm not doing it.
I support this.
And I would also like to put in for being the first trans mask bachelor.
Ooh.
Yes.
But you're
Would
already
watch.
engaged.
And that's queer culture, baby.
Would you 2 like to play a game show with us?
Yes.
Yes.
Yay.
Very much so.
So this game is called Hypotheticals. You and Gabby are my contestants. I'm going to give you a series of hypothetical situations. You can ask any clarifying questions you might have, and then you tell me what you would do in that situation. And I give a rose out to my favorite
Please.
answer.
Give me a rose.
So our first game is America's favorite game show. Would you stay with this cheater? Your partner of 8 years goes to a psychic who tells them that they let their real love get away, and that's why they are so miserable in their current life. Reacting to this, they immediately go find their ex from college, propose, and sleep with them in an effort to get their life back on track. About 1 hour later, they come to their senses and confess everything to you, promising they will never see another psychic. Would you forgive this cheater?
Claire, Emma?
Do we get to also consult the psychic in this situation?
Oh, I guess so, if you wanted to.
In this scenario, my life is exactly the same
Yes.
as it is now.
Well, you've been with your partner for 8 years. I don't know how long you've been with your husband.
Okay. Oh,
Mm.
this is interesting.
I would leave. I'll tell you what. I'm
Okay.
going to leave.
Lay it on me.
They proposed to and slept with, and that all was in the first hour of the psychic. So like they saw the psychic, they found their ex, they slept with them, and they proposed to them, and then that all happened in 1 hour.
No, 1 hour after that, they came to
Well,
their
how many
senses.
days were they doing this
No,
whole
it was all within
rigmarole?
1 day. It was within a couple hours of seeing the
a
psychic.
couple hours? No, absolutely not.
I think I'm with you. I think you gotta get the fuck out of there. Like
no.
it's just like that's like not a lot of faith in a relationship if a random psychic and you're just like your partner's just like, let me hit the road, Instagram stalk my college ex, propose to them, fuck them. Like it's a bridge too far.
Yeah.
I personally would go to the psychic because I would just want to see, I would want to know like what is my fate? Should
You would
I
believe
be
this
also-
psychic?
The psychic takes off her mask. It's actually your partner's mother who always wanted them to be with the college
that's
ex.
what I mean. Like you could expose the
Yeah.
scammer. Like I'm writing an investigative journalistic piece
Yeah.
Oh my God.
about the psychic. And that's how I'm going to get my book deal. I'm going to leave my partner, get my book deal,
Exactly.
end up
Out
on the
of
New York
control.
Times bestsellers list.
I'm sorry. So far, this just sounds like a HuffPost Personals blog at best. I'm sorry. Maybe you could do a lot with the material. Here's what I'm going to say. If your partner could like really make all that happen, that's not something you do on someone's advice. Like they really wanted to,
Right. They
were
to bang
waiting.
their ex.
Mm.
Yeah,
Like real
I
bad.
agree.
Like
Yeah,
it was just like
building.
the-
Like it was already there.
They never even
Right.
went to a psychic.
No, they did.
Okay, the psychic
No, I
is the college ex, again, wearing a mask.
Ugh.
Knew that
The-
they
the
wanted to be together because why would that
complicating
person after one day say, yeah, let's get married. It's you. It was always you.
They are of someone who's always been incredibly susceptible. They once changed careers based on a fortune cookie.
My partner?
Yeah.
Sounds like my current
then
partner,
I gotta
actually.
leave them anyway. It's not a good
Yeah,
match.
I don't think I could be with this person. Unfortunately, I do have a child with my partner, so that like does create a little it might tempt me to stay.
Yeah. It might. Good for that kid.
I feel like the psychic should provide free childcare for destroying your relationship.
I will say that if we did break up, I'm hearing great things about the lifestyle impacts of joint custody and getting 50% of my days back. So you know what? I think I would go ahead and leave my partner.
And that's the best answer.
The psychic takes off her mask. It's Elizabeth Warren. She says, free universal pre-K. And it was all politics all along.
Oh, I love it now.
Okay, our next game. Are you a terrible parent?
Oh, God.
Your child, 4, keeps
Is this a therapy session?
Here we go.
Your child, 4, keeps pinching everyone as a goof, but it is causing real problems at the playground. So the next time they pinch you, you scream and pretend to pass out from the pain for a full 5 minutes. Your child is hysterically crying the whole time, thinking you are dead, but they never pinch again. Are you a terrible parent?
Yes. I'm sorry. That's a no-no.
Which part specifically?
Scaring your small, like not yet mentally developed, practically a baby child that much, thinking they've killed you is extremely traumatizing. And pinching is like not great, but it's like developmentally pretty normal, not that big of a deal. There are much better ways to handle that. I follow a lot of parenting accounts now on Instagram.
You're like, pinching is fine.
I'm sorry. The ability to lie there while your
5 minutes
small
is a
child
long
cries
time.
hysterically, thinking they have killed you, like that is sociopathic. Like that is deeply fucked up. Your kid's gonna be in
What
therapy.
if they don't? Okay, Claire, what if they don't? It's not as far as they killed you. What if you just pass out for like 20 seconds and then open your eyes and say, oh my God, that made me pass out, not killed? I think that's fine.
Aren't they just going to be like, why aren't people ever passing out when I pinch them other places?
Yeah, I don't know if that would have the same deterrence.
I'll say some people are deeply allergic to pinches and you never know who it's going to be. So don't pinch anyone because some people will pass out.
That is kind of adorable.
Thank you.
I'm allergic to pinches.
You say
Okay,
there's one in 1,000 people are allergic to pinches, but you never
I'm just
know
gonna
who
say
it's going to
20
be.
seconds, very different than 5 minutes. And the scenario we heard specified 5 minutes.
That's true.
I'm also going to say, you relying on fear to fear even that something bad is happening to you as a deterrent for your child. It happens sometimes. Your child bites your nipple, you scream because it really hurts. That isn't it does sometimes turn into them thinking that acting like that is an appropriate way for them to handle problems.
By screaming and saying,
like-
you've hurt me when you haven't.
So now your child's just playing dead
Yeah,
every
you keep
time.
getting calls from the teacher that they've been
Right.
passed out for 5 minutes. Because they didn't get a second juice box.
You've created a monster child who's like,
Yeah, the babysitter's constantly calling you like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I killed your child. And then he's like, what? No.
He's like, I just
was
wanted more
being
cookie
silly.
dough.
And
I
that's
wanted more
why you
cookie
give me
dough.
more cookies.
Yeah, I think this one's
I
pretty
was going to say,
bad.
this is an Arrested Development
It's Arrested
scenario.
Development.
And the point of it was not that it was a good idea.
Whatever.
Okay, our final game. Would you forgive this liar? You go into work the night after getting dumped and find yourself crying in the bathroom stall. One of your coworkers, who you don't know that well, hears you and ends up consoling you over coffee. They share intimate stories of their own heartbreak, and you end up becoming quick friends. 3 years later, you are at their house for dinner, and it comes out through their spouse that your coworker has never been dumped in their entire life. They made the stories up to make you feel better and to seem relatable. Would you forgive this liar?
Oh, wow.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, I think we'd have to have like a long talk about like why they felt the need to do that. I mean,
Okay, so they told like really detailed, specific stories. This might seem like a detail, but like, did it come up again? Like, is it something that we talked about again after this moment?
Like,
you now have a friendship around much more than that, but occasionally something will happen. You're like, oh, that's like with you and Joel, and they're
Your
like,
ex.
yeah, don't remind me. But Joel didn't exist.
okay, so they do like mention
So
it. They've really like committed to the
So it's
lie
not-
over the years.
So it's not that they did date Joel, but they dumped Joel. Joel didn't dump them. It's that Joel didn't exist.
They fabricated.
I believed in Joel.
They fabricated like entire people.
Had I ever
and
seen a
stories.
picture of any of these people?
No, they said it was too painful to show you.
No,
Wow.
I'm out.
Oh, that's like a
That's
real
weird.
commitment to a lie that's different than like if it was like we had some drinks and they were like, yeah, I relate to you, and told like a couple stories and it wasn't formative to the friendship, and then like years later they were like, I just really like wanted to be your friend. I wanted to be there for you. So I like lied and that was stupid and I'm sorry. That I could get over.
Yeah, I heard
if it
about
was
it
like-
from the spouse.
Yeah.
They've constructed an
Yeah,
elaborate
they've like
fantasy world
committed
and
to
got your
this
buy-in.
bit for many, many years. I think that would
and they
have
weren't
an
going to tell
impact
me.
on the
The spouse told
foundation.
me.
Honestly, maybe this is weird. I think I would forgive them in a sense that like I don't think that thing harmed me that much. But like, do I want to be friends with them? Like maybe I would be like, I forgive you, but I don't want to hang out anymore.
Right.
Like you didn't really hurt me that much, but at the same time, I now think of you in a category with like
Untrustworthy.
weird grifters,
Yeah.
like people who pretend to have cancer online. Like I find out all your Facebook friends are sock puppets. Like you're in a new category of person that I just kind of don't
Right.
want
You're
to.
like my
hang with
friend,
anymore.
the scammer. It's like maybe you'd be like, yes, I forgive
Yeah.
you, and then like screen all their calls.
Yeah, that would probably be my move. Forgiveness, but no more friendship.
Yeah, I would do like the slow fade away because I don't enjoy conflict. So I'd just be like, I'm so busy
I wish
now.
you well.
You work
Go
right
forth
next
and
to
don't
them.
make up a bunch of breakups again.
We work next to
Yeah,
each
that's
other.
how
Oh,
you met
God.
each other. Your coworkers.
What?
Remember?
But like,
We still.
Well, you're both very loyal to the corporation.
and the corporation is clearly very loyal to you both as
Yeah,
well, which
to
is
us.
beautiful.
You haven't been
Yeah.
promoted or given a raise. Not even not even the
Like a Christmas bonus.
or like
I think
in-
we have to quit
interest
our
or-
jobs to get away from this.
yeah.
scammer.
Start fresh with your life.
yeah. I want stock options.
Yeah.
Go on The Bachelor to get away. Become an influencer.
Then some Reddit person digs up Joel, who actually was real.
Oh
But
my
you didn't know
God.
Joel.
Yeah, but Joel's like, I was real, and this person was mean to my. I don't know. They come up with so many stories. Reality, Steve. You know what I mean?
Well, if you go on the show and your trauma dump is that you're like, my friend made up someone named Joel
Yeah.
that they dated and was heartbroken by, and that person never existed, then you've set yourself up for a Reddit expose.
But I would also be like, that's some fascinating trauma.
Oh
Haven't
my
heard that
God.
before.
Yeah,
Oh my
I was
God.
like romance scammed by my best friend.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Where are the contestants who are victims of romance scams?
yeah.
One of the girls on the show next season is from the Tinder Swindler. Like she's just one of the girls that got Tinder.
Honestly, I
Yes.
would love that. Like, give me more overt scam content in my Bachelor viewing. That would really be great.
Oh, this was so fun. Thank you so
Delightful.
much for joining us. Where can people find you, follow you, and listen to your pod?
You can find our pod wherever you get podcasts. You can find us on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod, and on Twitter and TikTok at Love to See It Pod. And then I'm on social media at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon. Our podcast, of course, is Love to See It. We also have a newsletter, Rich Text, which you can find on Substack. And thank you so much for having
so
us. This
fun.
was super fun.
Stick around after the break. We'll be talking all about quiet quitting. Shh. back to Just Between Us. It's time for topics.
X.
Baby.
Baby.
Ow!
Oh no.
I hit my hand on the wall.
Gabby hit their hand on the wall. Oh no.
Well. Here we are again. Quiet quitting.
I would like to do that right now. I'm going to display quiet quitting by technically being here during the recording of this podcast, but I'm not going to contribute any original thoughts.
Why don't, since this isn't an original thought, why don't you explain what quiet quitting
Yeah, well,
is?
tell us what it is.
It's a term used to make employees feel bad, but it's basically just the concept
doing your work.
that they're only doing what they're being paid to do instead of going above and beyond for their employer and doing things they're not being paid to do, which is what has come to be expected of a lot of employees.
Can you imagine telling like someone in the like 70s, 80s, 90s that this was a concept?
Oh, you're just doing your job? What a loser.
You're packing up at 5? Wow.
Right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I think, okay, here's what happened. Everyone gaslit millennials into thinking that we had to just like work so hard and work above and beyond for peanuts and like not have healthcare. And then like our employer would let us play in a pool table like once every 5 weeks. And then all of a sudden, like, everyone's like, no, we should just go back to doing our jobs because we're not getting paid enough and we can't buy homes and we can't afford to have children. And everyone's like, no, why? And it's like, I don't know. Maybe because we like went through a recession upon another recession upon a pandemic and we're over it. Nobody pays anything. Every store I go to, every place I go, I see help wanted, help wanted. Okay. So you know what? Maybe the problem is you're not treating your employees correctly and you're not paying them enough because the turnover rates are abysmal.
I'd say something, but I've quietly quit.
Oh, you've quietly quit. Got it.
I second everything you said.
Quiet quitting
It's
is
just
the
doing your
concept
work.
of doing your job, of coming in at 9 and leaving at 5, metaphorically.
Taking
doing
your
your job,
full lunch break.
Taking your full lunch break.
Not talking to everybody else. Like, it's ridiculous. But the thing is, like, I really hate when things are misnamed.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because people have taken this thing, quiet quitting, without because it was originally like an NPR thing, right?
I
I
don't know.
believe.
No, you know what? I will blame them. Yeah.
It was, but the thing, wherever it was a full article explaining exactly what we're saying, like about how it's just doing your job. But then people just took the name and what was the tweetable thing, and they're making it something that it's not.
Well, it's misleading, right? It's like they're doing it so that people feel guilty about it. Like it's purposefully named that way to make it seem like a negative thing.
You're not quitting. If you're doing your job, you're not quitting.
You're just going home.
Right. You're just like not giving your life and blood to some employee, to some employer who like doesn't deserve it.
Here's what's happening is that people are doing their bare minimum and they're not getting fired. So they're calling it quiet quitting because people are just, because there's no leverage for the employers anymore because people just don't, because like, they're like, well, I have to keep this. Speaking of someone I know in my real life is being overworked so hard and like that person has so much leverage now because this place can't keep employees because they don't treat them correctly. And so it's like you can't call it quiet quitting if you're just like not able to fire people because you don't create an environment where people can thrive and succeed.
Do they have leverage? Have they stopped working as hard?
They're going to, yeah.
Going to.
I mean, I think it's this thing where you need to hire more people to fill in the gaps rather than just having the 4 people you do have working, like extending themselves to death.
Right.
You can't ask, you need to hire another employee. I'm sorry, you can't ask the same person to work double their work for the same pay because you don't want to hire one extra person.
Yeah. And I think it's also like this mental shift. Like you said, like we were raised with like, you got to work hard. You got to give it your all. Your job is your identity. Like to get ahead, you've got to like, you know, like work comes first. And everyone after going through a years-long horrific pandemic is like, maybe other things matter.
Yes. And also it is to the exploitation of yourself. And also if you are running yourself ragged to like show your boss X, Y, and Z, then the people under you, like, you're just crushing people on your way up. And you're not going to even get rewarded for it. You're like the kiss ass in the class who like doesn't even get extra credit. So like what? It's just like, well, I don't know. I think we were sold this idea that we would get extra credit, that we would
Right.
be
That we
able to
could
like
support
have these
ourselves
right, and like
have
it's
a
just
house
not
and all
right.
this stuff. Yeah.
And it's just like that didn't end up being true. And we're like, hey, that wasn't true. And they're like, why are you quitting? And we're like, we're not quitting. We just are like going to do our jobs and then focus on things that really matter to us, like family or hobbies or other things.
What do you think would be a better name for what it actually is?
Doing your job.
Packing up and leaving at the end of the day when you're not getting paid anymore.
You don't have to answer emails on the weekend. Like, fuck
Oh
that.
my gosh, that's one of my biggest.
Although I do email Melissa on the weekend.
I do
I
too.
don't
But you don't
answer.
reply, and I don't expect you to.
What I do is I'll sit there and I'll write out the email, but I schedule my emails out so they don't go out until like the work day.
Oh.
You are a workaholic.
I'm not a workaholic. I just like, if I'm sitting there and I see it, then I don't want it to like.
But you want
I
people.
don't-
Yeah.
I don't consider myself a workaholic because I work for the things that I want. Like I can stop. There's just a certain amount of lifestyle that I would like. And so like I work to maintain that lifestyle. But like if I didn't want to maintain that lifestyle, I just wouldn't do as much work as I do.
Right.
I saw someone have an email signature that was like, please keep in mind that my work hours are not your work hours, so feel
I
no
saw
need
that
to like
too.
reply when it's your work hours.
Wow.
And I thought that was like so cool.
Yeah.
Like it's such a like I feel like that culture is awesome of like, yeah, get back to me when you're on the clock, not
Yeah.
like immediately or when I'm on the clock.
Yeah.
I thought that was the coolest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just like if you're not going to pay people a living wage, which we literally don't, which again, like the people that are pissed about this, I've largely seen like older white people. And like, if you're pissed about this, when you were coming up, when you were working your beginning jobs, you were making enough money to support yourself. The cost of living has not maintained the same level as the minimum wage or wages. So why would someone donate more of their time or go overboard or work themselves to death if they are still not going to be able to afford an apartment?
Right.
So like that, I don't see how that's the employee's fault or problem. Or guess what? If you're not owed this person like taking initiative, because if you haven't rewarded that initiative, you're not a good boss or manager. End quote.
Yeah, I agree. I would instead of calling it quiet quitting, I would call it doing your job.
Exactly.
Doing just your job.
Yeah. And why do we put all this, like people used to just like go and like do their little accounting jobs or do their like work at a restaurant or whatever. But now there's like all this pressure to be like the most initiative or like become like a famous accountant on TikTok or whatever. It's like everyone just calm down.
And hustle and have more than one job. And
Yeah.
Well, before, when you weren't at work, no one could get in touch with you.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Because you didn't
The
have
dream.
email or a smartphone.
Right.
And so that really shifted. Like, I think when my dad was a lawyer, like pre having like everyone
Mhm.
email him versus post, like it's
Mhm.
different. It changed work
Yeah.
culture in both good but mostly bad ways.
Yeah.
I like that one time where Gabby was texting us about something about work stuff on a Saturday, and we were both like, no working on a Saturday.
They were trying to work, and both of us are like, nope, we're not entertaining this. Goodbye.
I hear you. I have my own problems with it. My boss is a real hard ass. Just kidding. My boss is me. But in some ways, in other ways, no. But yeah, I think like having boundaries around when you answer things. And I see a lot of people fighting back. I'm on like Reddit. I'm on Late Stage Capitalism Reddit. I'm on the Anti-Work Reddit. And you see a lot of good examples of ways people respond to requests from bosses that are unreasonable. So if you're looking for some of those, I suggest heading on over there.
What, can you give one?
Oh, it'll just be people being like, I don't answer emails on the weekend or something. Just like being there, they'll have like a bunch of them, or it'll be, a boss saying, I know you asked for this day off, but I actually need you to come in. And the person will be like, I asked for that day off months ago. I will not be coming in. This is not my fault.
Yeah.
So
I've also had like clients that expect more from, or like expect immediate things, or expect, like, I laid out a outline of things of this is what this is for this price, and then they expect more, and I'm like, well, you need to pay more. Or like I resend the emails showing that like this is what you paid for, you're not getting more than that.
Mm-hmm. Do people get hostile?
One person did, but then they when I laid everything out, and then I said, if you want more, then you can pay more, and they're like, okay, this is fine. And
no, it sucks that like the expectation has become more, and
Pay has not.
and the pay has not, and then to do what was actually agreed upon is like seen as like that you're somehow ripping them off,
ripping them
whatever.
off. Please, poop on the clock, baby. This is like, has anyone seen the movie Clerks? Hello, Office Space. Those are your that's what you should watch this weekend.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna come to these recordings anymore.
you don't have to.
You're not
You don't
coming
want me to
anymore.
come anymore?
You say you don't want to. If you don't want to be here, don't be
I
here.
want to be here.
Okay.
Quiet quitting would be you coming and then just not saying anything.
That's no, quiet quitting is you coming and showing up and doing the work, but like not staying to do the TikToks.
Yeah, or not like not talking to us in between or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk to you guys in between.
Okay.
I'm just going to sit like this.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. No, but it's hard. What do we rate this episode?
I rate it 80 out of 7. Finding community.
That's got to be your highest rating ever.
It is.
I will rate it 42 out of 35 roses.
Nice.
I'll rate it 13 out of 6. Don't ask more of me than you. I don't know. Don't ask more of me. That's it.
Don't ask, don't tell. We're just don't ask.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to Claire Fallon and Emma Gray for being our guests.
Just between us.